you all can see everything. Kind of say a little bit about myself. My name is Peter Gonzalez, and I've worked with, I've always had a bit of an interest in the paranormal. About six years or so ago, that's when I was working with an individual named Martin Leal, and I was doing his tour for several years, and before I decided to go out and branch out and do my own. And I've always had a bit of an interest in this sort of thing. I got started, then I started reading some of the books by Docia Williams. I'm pretty sure some of y'all are familiar with her. And also by one of the books that really got me started on all this was the book by Ed Tyers called Ghost Stories of Texas. And what I always liked about his stuff was he basically crisscrossed the states. This was sometime back in the late 70s, early 80s. And just recorded a lot of these different stories that people were talking about. And what fascinated me was how he used a little bit of Texas lore, a little bit of Texas history, and how that combined with some of the ghosts that we have in and around the area. And what I've always said on my tours that I do is, no matter what part of the country, what part of the world you're from, is what makes all those stories interesting is that they reflect the culture around them. You go up to the Northeast, you come across colonial era style ghosts. Moving south, you come across Civil War ghosts. Out towards Hollywood, movie star ghosts, and so forth. Okay? And you'll find that wherever you go, and that's what I've always found so interesting about this. Apart from also doing the tours, I've also done investigations as well, and came across quite a few interesting things within the past year or so about some of the things that I've come across. And kind of, there's different tours in the area, but what I always like to try to do is I always try to keep everything up to date. I don't just tell people about, okay, this is so and so, and this is what people have seen over here, and telling the same story year after year. I try to keep all my stuff up to date and fresh, and this way I can present it to y'all public to see what y'all think. Okay. If all goes as planned, back in about a couple months back, was approached by Sci-Fi Channel. Hopefully, God willing, I can get a chance to do a show up there and see how things can go. Okay. But like I said, this is my logo. Hopefully, everybody can see that. That's the Alamo Center. So yes, I have the little Indiana Jones thing going, so you go on that. This one up over here, this is an investigation that we did a couple months back with me and some of my team members, and contacted by a homeowner. So that one I thought was kind of interesting, and I was kind of like, no, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, because a lot of times when I go into these things, I keep a foot in skepticism, because, well, you're not quite sure. And especially it being a home, you kind of have to be a little careful about some of these things, mainly because some ghost hunters that I've known before have said that they've gotten in trouble if they've done overnight investigations because people have had stuff missing. And that tends to, that has a tendency to sometimes happen. But what I thought was kind of interesting on this was in broad daylight. This was in the Leon Valley area, and we went in. And what I did think was kind of interesting was, even though we didn't see anything with our own eyes, even though my other investigator thought he could have sworn he saw a shadow at one point, but he may have been mistaken, was we were watching the dog. Because the dog occasionally would bark at things and look at things, and we were kind of a little interested in this because, as you know, animals do have a lot more keener sense. And we did catch it, but this, again, we knew nothing about any of this stuff, but this was caught later on film. Y'all can kind of, if you want to move up, you can kind of see this up over here. And the picture right up over here, you notice right here by like where I guess where my hand is, there's a little bit of a fog that's right there. Now, what's interesting about that, like I said, we didn't see anything. We didn't even come across any cold spots, and this was in broad daylight. But what I did find that was interesting on this was the EVP that we caught. Let me see if I can try to pull that up for you all, but hopefully you all can hear this. I'll go to the iPhone. Okay. I'm going to try to turn this up as much as I can. But as we're doing this, it was 5 minutes into the investigation. It's at like a 0.5 or so. But like 3 minutes into the investigation, you do hear the dog barking, and then you hear a growl of some kind, almost like a hiss. Almost. You see? Just kind of get to the point here. You hear the dog bark. Next thing I hear is the EVP goes off. The EMS detective. Let me hear it again. Okay, let's try this one.
That it?
That's it. Let me see.
That was an awfully long one.
Funny thing after that investigation, and we finally got a chance to get back with her. Homeowner eventually moved. Currently living someplace in Texarkana. The funny thing about this, unfortunately, was the dog, which was a very sweet dog. They haven't been able to find because they left that with a friend, and unfortunately, they can't seem to find the dog. But the family is currently living. They've moved. Like I said, it was really an interesting thing. I came into this particular investigation kind of skeptical, but the house is somewhere in the Leon Valley area. But if anything, I'm going to try to maybe possibly do maybe a follow-up on that, see what I can kind of find out, and see if there's any other new homeowners coming in, and just to kind of warn them, just to say, you know, if you have any questions, please feel free to call me, and we'll see what we can kind of do from there. All right, get back to the rest of the PowerPoint. Now this is rather interesting. We're going to go over at Crossroads Mall. This is where we did the filming for the pitch that we did for Sci-Fi, and it was kind of, there's a couple of interesting things. I don't know, maybe there was just blind luck or something like that. As we're coming up the escalator for a shot, the escalator just stopped for one, and the guards even say in order for it to stop, it has to be manually shut. Fluke, we're not sure, but I just think that was kind of interesting. As we were coming in to get ready to do the actual investigation, as soon as we were coming in, as soon as they were interviewing Lori and Lila, who own the shops up over there, who own a couple of shops, we were in the background, just kind of just staying out of focus there, and we would hear like little noises, like a chair move, and there was totally nobody in there. We also noticed that there was equipment was actually going off, and we hadn't even started anything yet. So I'm thinking, okay, something's really up here. And interesting thing. You may want to, if you can give me a little bit closer to her. We did notice that we were hearing, like I said, chairs moving and so forth. And in some of the pictures up over here, we did find the cold spots. Everybody's more or less familiar with cold spots, right? But it was very low to the ground, and we were kind of figuring this had to have been a child. because one of the shop owners up over there is kind of like a very mother figure to a lot of people who are there, and naturally, and we kind of figured since this was a child, it would naturally hook on to somebody like her. And as you can kind of see up over here, we can kind of see where the red's at. There is a small little plug, and there was the little cold spot right there. We were using the little toy up over the Shamu to help try to get a response. Again, I do apologize if we don't have our tables here. But the funny thing is that in these pictures, the fog moves. It's right there, there, and then there. So it actually was moving. We did catch some other interesting EVPs over there. To turn this up. It actually did call out my name, oddly enough. It says, Peter, thank you. Okay, but it did say, Peter, thank you.
Don't you love equipment?
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder if they follow me around and just try to mess with me. These things happen sometimes. I'm going to try to have this here. Let me move on to the Alamo for a second here. Of course, everybody knows the battle. This one wasn't taken by me, but this was actually used by on Martin on his thing. If you happen to look right up over here on the picture of the Alamo, notice right up over here, there is a shadowy-looking figure that's right here.
Yes.
And what we used to be able to do was go onto the grounds to the Alamo to do some of our investigations and so forth, give people some equipment here and there. But with all the different tours that are out there now, we don't get a chance to do that, mainly because if they open up do this thing for one tour, then they got to do it for all the tours, and the Daughters of the Republic want this to be the Alamo to be known for what it was, for the hallowed ground for what it is, and I understand that, and I'm not going to argue that. So whenever I do some of my tours, and I tell people, as we stop in front of the Alamo, they explain a few things. I say, I have to take back the equipment, and I say, you can go around and look for stuff. You're just not officially looking at the Alamo, or you're not looking for ghosts. You're looking at the Alamo. And and people are more than welcome to do that. Now, the funny thing up over here for this next one, this was taken with a thermal imaging camera. Now, there's different ones that they've used, but the one that Martin had used, and how we had this thing set up, was if you put a thermal imaging on a person, you're going to get reds and oranges because of the body heat. And this is that same figure in that same window, but if you notice the figure that's right there happens to be blue.
No thermal.
No thermal. Funny thing is, when we used to be able to go on the ground, so we used to put the thermal up over there, it would, sometimes, we would call out for this figure. We believe his name was either Antonio or Anthony. And when we'd call out for him, he would sometimes, interact. He would you could kind of see him moving and so forth. But we did notice that he was very receptive to females. So we would always tell some of the ladies to do was to go out there and flirt with them a little bit, show a little leg, show a little cleavage. I always also tell people, don't do this in San Antonio, not New Orleans. He threw beads one time, don't do it. But as for which figure who is exactly, we're not quite sure, mainly because if you look where the Alamo Monument is, there's at least 12 different people that her name are Antonio or Anthony. But we think he may have been somebody by the name of Antonio Fuentes.
Is that a window?
Pardon me?
Is that a window?
That actually is a window. And now that guy I actually did see with my own eyes once. What happened...
Come here.
Thank you! That's the same as you can come on. Okay. Let me try to move it up to 58. A lot of times when you're doing also sessions, if there's noise, you have to make sure, you have to point out noise moving, somebody coughing, this way to contaminate the secret. You ever hear this that time? Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. Y'all might want to move up because it's kind of hard to hear. Now, of course, everybody knows the infamous Minger Hotel. And if not, I'm going to just kind of give you a little background on this. This was built back in the 1860s, 1870s, 1859, I'm sorry. And it has a long history of stuff. And during one actual, and they weren't on my turf, but they took a picture and then they sent it to me. That I thought was interesting about this in particular. Okay. This picture that's right here, and at first I didn't really think anything of it because I thought these were just window streaks and little window smudges. But on the figure that's right up over here, there was something there because we kind of cleaned up the Photoshop as best as we could. But what you can kind of barely see up over here, looks like there's a figure who's actually sitting down. Somebody about child size or so, sitting down, wearing a vest, white shirt, and sitting down, and looks like it's pointing at something. One of the figures that we have up there is pretty well known, and I didn't take this one. This is by this is one I think Mark Leal had taken. This is Sally White, and Sally was a chambermaid who worked there back around the 1870s, 1860s, around there. She was African American. What we kind of know about her, she was a chambermaid and very well liked by the staff. Her jealous husband was convinced she had an affair, and then he shot her. And from what we understood, some of the stuff on the historical record, at such close range that her dress actually caught on fire. She made it back to the hotel. They took care of her, but keep in mind this is the 1860s, 70s, and they couldn't save her like with today's technology. So they just held her, they just kept her as comfortable as possible. She had lost a lot of blood, and after 4 days she died. The hotel staff, they all pitched in, they bought her grave, and they bought a tombstone. Now what happened on this particular investigation, I was not on this one in particular, but Martin said he had his temperature gun, and at the end of the hallway he detected a cold spot, snapped a picture, and in the over there is a figure that was not being, that you couldn't see with the naked eye, and in the picture, you look kind of carefully, you do see someone there that looks like they're wearing like a skirt. Obviously, you know, nothing's there at the time. But I did think what was interesting was a few years back we invited Steve Gonzalez from Ghost Hunters to come down for an investigation, for a convention. And I thought what was rather interesting was he had experience at the Mingo. He said that he was going to get up to go, he said he decided to move up from Coke to Jack and Coke, went to go to the ice machine, and he saw somebody walking around. He thought it was somebody from the convention, and he thought, well, it's going to come by and say hello and stuff like that. Nobody there at 3 o'clock in the morning. Nobody walking around, nor doors closed, nothing, nobody on that floor. So I think that was the ghost of the Mingo just telling Steve, welcome to the Mingo. How you doing? Hi again, come on in. Let me see. Now, another one that a lot of people don't know too much about, right up over here, this is that would be the Emily Morgan Hotel, I'm sorry. Now, the funny thing about Emily Morgan, kind of give you a little bit of some backstory. Supposedly, she was there during the time, right after the battle, right around the time of the Battle of San Jacinto, and she helped keep Santa Anna distracted, so to speak. And while that was going on, that's when Sam Houston's forces rode in, and he couldn't get out there within enough time to direct his forces. The guy was caught literally with his pants down. Or as I like to say on the tour, Bill Clinton was the first guy to... Never mind. Anyway, all right. But the funny thing that happened there was about 5 years ago, there was a murder that was there. It actually made the papers. And what happened was there was a woman, her name was Elvira Hernandez. Now, some of you may find this may sound a little familiar. The funny thing about Elvira, unfortunately, she met up with one of the people who was there at the hotel, and who was one of the workers, and from what we kind of figured and we kind of know is he invited her back to the room. Things didn't go quite the way they planned. Let me see. And what happened out there was, since it didn't go quite as planned, she refused him, and then he proceeded to stab her 42 times with a steak knife, and then cut her throat. And then SAPD came in and then later shot him. So unfortunately that happened. But one of the EVPs that we did get up over here with her, hopefully this way. Help me. Try that again. It says help me. Charles after as soon as it hits the box. See, I'll turn it up. Like I said, we're trying to, next steps, and obviously we've made contact with Elvira, is to hopefully see if we can try to help her out in some way. So the next step for us would probably be is to have some of our friends that I know in the Austin area who can probably come down, maybe do a blessing, and try to help her move on to the next step. So That's probably the next thing we can do for Elvira, hopefully, God willing. Now, the next place I got to say about, a lot of people do not know about, is the downtown post office. Now, the funny thing about that, one of the guards who was there was one of the ones who originally started telling me stories about this place, and he had told me one time, him and his buddy were at their desk. It was Saturday night, and it's about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Nobody's there, and they're just sitting there, and suddenly they hear keys jingling, and they're like, "Is that you?" And he said, "I thought that was you." And they start to look around for a little bit, and on a wall they see a shadow beginning to form. And naturally, since it was over here, they ran over here. During one of the first times I actually got a chance to go inside the downtown post office, that's it right down there. Funny thing was, when the very first time I went in there, the guards who were there were 3 guards. 2 of them were big, heavy-set guys. One of the other ones was ex-military. You think these guys wouldn't be afraid of anything, but you could have heard it in their voices. There was something that had them scared. As we're walking around, I did notice a lot of rooms were colder than normal. But they said the AC was not on. And on the floors above us, you would hear like stuff being dragged and so forth, dropped, something heavy like a table or a desk. And they said we hear that sort of thing all the time. During one of the times, I did get a chance to go in there, and this one I did catch with my just regular camera, just like this. And I know some of you who may have done investigations before. You could take as many as maybe 30, 40 pictures or so, and then you can make, all you need is that one lucky one, and bingo. Right up over here, you can kind of notice in the doorway there is a figure that's there. And this has been verified by different independent teams. In the doorway that's set up over here, you do see a figure. And the funny thing about that figure, it was not there when we took the picture. Let me kind of bring that around. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's a little over 6 feet tall. That's pretty much what we know about that. Oddly enough, I think this is kind of a funny piece, because I have found out that there is stuff there that does not like me particularly. I didn't expect to do a session. This is when I was kind of getting the team together, and they said, "Okay, here's the post office," and they said, "Well, let's do an EVP session, Peter." And I'm like, okay. So I went in, and as I started doing this stuff, because I've heard there's stuff that doesn't like me, whatever was there called me a dick. I was not planning on this. As soon as I asked it, it just said, "Has anyone heard it actually likes me?" Let me see if I can try to. So yes, I'm one of the few people who's managed to piss off the living and the dead. Okay. Okay.
It's right there after he said it. Me, it's right there.
You heard it?
No.
I'll show you.
It's really hard to pick up.
Yeah. You heard it? Okay, so one more time. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
it's funny, but at the same time, creepy. Like I said, I confess off to the ladies today. It's asking my ex-girlfriend, so let's not get into that. All right. Let me see. That is a lot of stuff that I do have up over here. Now, normally when I do my tours, I meet downtown, right there at the corner of Alamo and Houston Street. And it's normally $15 to do this. However, if you mentioned that you were here at Texas Comicon, I will give a discount for that as well. I do give out equipment. I use EMF detectors, the standard one that I do use. And you can find a lot of these things that are out there on places called theshadowlands.net. That's where I get a lot of my stuff from that. And fairly simple enough to use. I'm still kind of working my way up to getting some other things. I've only been doing this, like I said, doing my own tour for about a year now. And a few investigations here and there. Another neat one that I did catch was when we were into Castroville, me and my girlfriend did a tour investigation up over there. And normally when I do my tours, I'm always dressed like this. And it's kind of funny because I'm kind of dressed semi-period, that has a tendency to sometimes rile them up. And my girlfriend, something similar, she had a long skirt, vest type of outfit as well, and a white blouse. As we're just sitting there kind of doing some of the sessions, and I'm kind of like, just relaxing and so forth. Cold spot right here next to me, between the both of us. And it just seemed to be drawn immediately to us. And from what I understood about where this particular place is at, there was it's now a bed and breakfast. And now it's well, it was a bar, now it's a bed and breakfast. It was like, lovely, okay, you can stay in a haunted place. And since there was a bar that was, since they had the bar right across the street, that's where they had the sheriff's department. And there was some card playing that was taking place, and if your history from back then, whenever there was cards playing around, going on, usually it was going to be something kind of shady possibly going on the side. Oddly enough, it turned violent. One of the sheriffs or the deputies came running across, gun drawn, and then he got shot. And we're thinking this possibly may be the guy who did this. And I just thought that was kind of interesting because there was a cold spot and it was drawn immediately to where I was at. Interesting thing also is getting back to the post office here. My friend who's not here with us right now, unfortunately. I'm not sure, she's probably running around. Who could probably even verify this? As you're walking around where the post office was one time, we got a chance to go inside, and underneath where the post office is at, that's where they have the mail trucks. And there's, whenever you have anything like clutter, that's where they have a tendency to sometimes be hiding in and around. And we did come across a female spirit, and originally we thought this was a prostitute, but it turns out this was a young girl who was possibly 16 to 20 years old, who had been kidnapped by the Mexican army and brought over here. And we're communicating through my friend who can actually act as a medium between the two of us. And well, the first one we actually met was a Mexican lieutenant. We're not sure who he was in particular. Only thing we do know about him is that he was just some low-level lieutenant. And I asked him, do you know how much time has passed? And he said, yes. And so if you can kind of think about it, between 1836, the time of the battle, between now, present day, how much time he's actually seen it. The only thing he wanted to do was just cross over and go home. And we helped him go over. And when we did find the female, she thought since I was dressed like this, that I was from her time period. She obviously thought I was cute too, but guess I can hit on the living end of it. My girlfriend gets jealous of it. But, so we managed to help her go over. But oddly enough, one of the characters who was there was somebody who referred to himself as the General. Now, the funny thing about the General was, from what we kind of know about him, when I did come across him, a different psychic medium told me one time that as we came to the back area, this figure was being very confrontational, dared us to come inside the building, and told my friend's mother, why don't you come in here, I'll bend you over and I'll show you what a man can do. Yeah. So the next night we took him up on his offer, and as we went, unfortunately I don't have an EVP of this. We didn't have the equipment at the time. As we're walking around in there, we did notice just 3 of us that are in there, just actually 4 of us, and we called out, General, if you heard, can you give us a sign of your presence? And then we hear, it's kind of trailing off, and that's when she said, he's coming. Asked again, General, if you heard, can you give us a sign of your presence? And that's when we heard a disembodied voice that said, get out. And the only way I can describe what this voice sounded like is if you ever saw the movie Independence Day, when you heard the alien say, die, it was that kind of, it sounded just like that. Get out. And it's like, sure, no problem.
See ya.
Because from what I've understood, when you hear something like that, when it tells you to get out, you actually have seconds. It's giving you enough time, it's giving you fair enough warning to actually leave, because they draw up energy. And depending on how much energy they can draw up, they can do things as simply as maybe knocking over your hat, pulling hair, scratching, and so forth, maybe even moving things around. And knowing that this figure had been there for that long, it was time to get out. But oddly enough, when my friends were here, who helped them have the ability to help them cross over, we sent the general packing, and I'm pretty sure he went to a place where it's nice and warm. Okay. And when that happened, that stirred up a lot of things on the post office, and all that did was, there was just a lot of activity, so I had to call my friends back from Austin, and we had to do a cleansing floor by floor by floor, which the thing I did think was interesting. We were told by the main investigator over there to stay at the floor level, so we were doing that. And the elevator opened up on its own. Funny thing about that elevator, you need the key to open that thing in order for it to come up. And the elevator just opened up on its own, and it's like, somebody wants us to go up there. As we were walking around the inside of the place, I did notice a couple of funny things. I did feel a little woozy early in the day, almost like little flu-like symptoms. And from what people have told me, this actually means it's what they call spiritual warfare, something that's evil is taking it out on you. And I did notice at one point as I was walking around, there was a smell of vomit at one point that I came across, just out of nowhere. Very faint smell of vomit. And I did come across a very faint scream, very faint, that was somewhere in the background as my friends were going floor by floor by floor, blessing everything. And oddly enough, we did do the full cleansing and everything. Oddly enough, when this is going on, my friends are very faith-based, my camera, for some odd reason, just stopped working. After the cleansing,